Don't be afraid to pursue your dreams. Now, don't go in it and just completely be emotional about it. Think about, worst case scenarios. What if I don't have it? And plan for it, right? I know like a lot of us just like, I just want to go do this. But be, precise and pragmatic about when you do it and why. Understand what your why is, understanding how you're going to change the game, understand how you're going to change the world, and let that passion drive and fuel that inspiration to go do it.
Hey folks, welcome to the podcast. This is a very special episode to me. This was actually the first podcast that I've ever recorded in front of a live audience. I was asked to host a live interview at the Cincinnati Podcast Festival, and this episode is the result. I invited local Cincinnati entrepreneur Paolo Dominguez to join me as my guest, and he absolutely killed it. Paolo is the founder and CEO of Jubal, a platform that allows creators like podcasters, YouTubers, bloggers, and artists to accept monetary support from their fans. Essentially, Jubal makes it super simple for content consumers to contribute as little as $1 to those creators who they love. And since I love talking with Paolo and am very intrigued by his business, I wanted to test it out. So if you would like to support this show with as little as a $1 contribution, I have included my own Jubal link in the show notes, or you can go to millennialmm.com/support. Also, if you are a creator who is interested in starting a Jubal page of your own, I've also included a referral link in the show notes to get your own account set up. So with that, please enjoy this live recording of the Millennial Mastermind podcast. So we are here today live. Yes. Amazing. From Memorial Hall in Cincinnati for Cincinnati's first podcast festival. I'm joined by guest Paolo Dominguez, who is the founder and CEO of Jubal, a social media button that aims to transform the like on digital sites. So I'm excited to dive into your story here, Paolo. Before we dive into the company and your whole entrepreneurial journey, let's go back in time a little bit to what Paolo was doing pre-Jubal. Can you give everybody just a quick 2 to 5 minute explanation of where you were professionally and personally before you started Jubal?
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me on the show. I'm super excited to be here. So before, I think I've had the typical career from a career professional standpoint. I worked at here locally at a large payments company where I was a VP in a sales enablement role and in a product role. But my career, I've always had like a side hustle, an entrepreneurial side hustle, because I've always been inspired by other entrepreneurs kind of creating the next big thing and really making change in the world. So I've always had something on the side. So while I was really passionate about, really building my professional career, the real nugget here was really I wanted to do something entrepreneurial and really make changes to the world. And so while I was a fan of kind of some of the origin story with how I came up with Jubal is, we all consume this awesome content. And it could be on Facebook, it could be on YouTube, it could be on Twitter, all these different channels. And I was scrolling through my Facebook feed, and I came across this YouTuber called the Holderness Family. And they do, I've got three boys, and they do skits. They do skits to music, parodies. And I'm sitting next to my wife, and I saw this again. I said, oh my God, this is so great. This is so awesome. I showed it to my wife. She laughed. And I said, you know what? I want to give them $1. I want to give them money because I was so inspired by their content. And then I thought, why can't I do that? It deserves more than a like. There's more than a share, right? How can I give them money? I couldn't give them money. So being in the payment space, I thought, well, that's something that I could probably dig my teeth into. And so that's kind of how the origin started.
I love that. So you started to touch on it, but can you go a little deeper into what Jubal does and what the company is?
Absolutely. So we help creators of all kinds, podcasters, YouTubers, Instagrammers, Facebook. We help these creators get paid for their craft. So we're a crowdfunding, or what we like to call a fan funding platform. So we connect creators with their fans in a way where their fans can monetarily support them. These creators are giving this free content to the world because they're inspired by it, because it's their hobby, it's because they just want to share. But the value that we get from it in return, and the value that they get monetarily, there's an imbalance there. So that's why we set forth with Jubal. It is, we believe there's all this goodwill that's kind of trapped because of payment friction, meaning I want to help, back to the Holderness family, I wanted to support them, but there was no way that I could, no easy way that I could. So that's what Jubal it's all about, is really connecting the creators and the fans so fans can support them for the stuff that they love.
Yeah, well, in a room of podcasters, obviously you're preaching to the choir here, and everybody, we're all constantly looking for ways to monetize our shows, and I think that this is a great way to start to do that. How does it differ from like a Patreon, which is a similar platform that allows content creators to ask their fans, their listeners, their viewers to make that monetary contribution?
Yep. So that's a great question. Patreon is actually awesome. Love Patreon because anything that helps the creator community, I'm a fan of. But one of the things that I don't think Patreon is really capturing is when you sign up for Patreon as a creator, your fans are required to pay a monthly subscription. And while that's great from a creator standpoint because it's predictable income, in our research what we found is less than 1% of followers become patrons on Patreon. And the reason is that you, as a fan, you have to pay a monthly subscription. Well, what if you like 20 creators, right? It's really, and then do we want to add and manage another subscription? It's difficult. So at Jubal, it can be just a one-time donation, or potentially it could be a subscription. But we allow that one-time subscription. We're targeting that 99%, right? The 99% that didn't want to follow you on Patreon, but still want to support you. So we think that there's a lot on the table there that creators can capitalize on through our platform.
I love it. So let's dive back into the entrepreneurial journey.
Sure.
So you're watching the Holderness family. You're struck with inspiration. Why can't you give money to these people? They're awesome.
Yeah.
I've seen them. They're hilarious. And you decide to start to pursue this. What does those first couple of months look like pursuing it? And when did you decide to go full-time into pursuing Jubal and leave your corporate job?
Yeah, so it was a long process from the time of inception where, wow, I think there's an opportunity here. The first thing that you've really got to think about, yes, there's an opportunity, but how big is the opportunity, right? Because if it's a small opportunity, is it worth really risking, your career, your professional career to go jump in and do? So it's really about like market research, market analysis, like, okay, how big is this opportunity? And the way we framed it was anywhere there is content available, anywhere you can consume content, enjoy it, get value from it, there's an opportunity to Jubal it. And so the market becomes absolutely tremendous when you think it from that perspective, right? YouTube has something like 4 billion views a day. And Facebook, 1.6 million likes per second, right? And that's just the two platforms. All this content, bloggers, podcasters are freely sharing this content that we get a whole lot of value. When was the last time who went to YouTube and you were trying to figure out a problem, whether it's a computer or whether it's, like a school accounting or whether you had to fix your car, you go to YouTube, there it is, the exact same problem with the exact same product. They list it all out for you and how to fix it, bam.
Every day.
Right, every day. So it's like, what do you thank them with? Subscribe, like. That's not right. There's an imbalance there.
Right.
So let me help you. So that's what, from a market standpoint, I was like, okay, I think this opportunity is huge. And then to the latter point of your question is, so after many months, really a year from inception to when, I really said, hey, there's something there. It's like, okay, you lined up the market, you lined up the opportunity. I came from a tech background, so I understand the technology. And then it becomes a personal decision, and I guess much more than personal, but also a family decision, right? Because here I've got a very good gig at this great company, and I'm willing to kind of jump ship. So this has been a culmination, as I mentioned before. It's been 10 years in the making, the way I look at it, right? Because I've had startup hustles on the side,
right,
where I had the full-time gig and then kind of did the part-time gig with the startup. This one seemed super relevant, super personal to me. We were at a point from a family standpoint that we could take on that risk. And so, things happened to line up, and I thought, you know what? This is one of those things where I just have to do personally, and I think there's a lot of upside to it. Talk with my family, and I said, you know what? Let's go for it. Opportunity presented itself, and there we went.
So what do you think were your biggest fears at that stage? You're about to jump ship. You've got the support of your family, which is huge and probably necessary in that kind of transition. But what are the fears that are running through your head that naturally, I imagine, have to be there?
The situation for me was it was all vaporware at this point, right? So I didn't have a product. I myself am not a coder, although I work with technology, but I'm not a coder. So when the opportunity presented itself, I'm like, okay, we're going to go after it. But then there was this long time where I had to, one, find a team, particularly a tech co-founder. And then while I was finding that tech co-founder, I had to build the product. So I worked with other companies here locally to build the first initial prototype. But all that said, that was, 6 months, maybe even 8 months before that product was done. So all that time I was a solopreneur with a family to feed, all this pressure on my shoulders, and kind of by myself in the beginning. Now, once I started to get plugged into Startup Simpsy and some of these other startup groups around the Cincinnati area, it's like, okay, I wasn't a solopreneur. There's other entrepreneurs that I can relate with, that I can talk with. I had friends that were also pursuing this, and we kind of, would meet very frequently, just kind of bounce ideas off, offer support. Because when you're a solo entrepreneur, and even when you have a team, it can be very lonely.
I'm sure.
Right? It can be very lonely and there's lots of great highs, but then there's also a lot of great lows. And if you're really a pursuant of that and you're passionate about that idea, you have to be determined and fight through all those things and just continue to pursue your dream.
And then to whatever degree you're willing to share, what do the economics look like in terms of when you were making that jump? Or what recommendations or advice do you have to other aspiring entrepreneurs who are thinking about making that jump and maybe they don't have a product that's necessarily bringing in the revenue yet? Where do they need to be from a monetary perspective to be able to weather the storm that it takes to get there?
So I think it depends on the type of business that you're starting, right? The business that I was starting, it was high risk, high reward. and it was really about user growth. So the revenue I knew wasn't going to start really rolling in until further down the line. So what I would recommend to all you aspiring entrepreneurs out there is, when you make the leap, when you have the support from your family and friends, and you're ready to do it, hold on tight. I really recommend at least 2 years worth of income, so that you can do this for 2 years. And because it really, everybody thinks, when I first went on, I thought, I can get this product done, no problem. Right? Come on. This is like
6 months and you'll be
That's right.
rolling in cash.
I've been in this space forever, right? I've had a team of people, we can stand this up, no problem. Well, guess what? I left the space and it was just me. So no team, nobody else to do this. So it takes a lot longer. One, it takes a lot longer than you think to actually develop the product. But then secondly, it takes a lot longer when you think about customer traction, right? You got to find product market fit and really understand who, like an earlier presentation, who the kingdom is before you can start to really get traction. So that's what I would recommend. Again, it depends on the type of business that you're pursuing. If you can start generating your own revenue and income, really early, I would say you probably don't need that. But in my case, it was one of these go big or go home type.
So what have you
plays.
learned then over the past 2.5 years, that if there was one piece of advice, you can hop in a time machine and go back and talk to yourself right before you made that leap out of the corporate gig and you were going out on your own in that solopreneur capacity? Is there one nugget of wisdom you might give to younger Paolo?
Yeah, absolutely, there is. So, when you think about becoming an entrepreneur, you look at all the sexy stories out there where people out on the West Coast in Silicon Valley are raising millions of dollars, right? They pitch their idea, have no product, and here you go. They hand you a big fat check. Here's $10 million, go do it, right? Everybody has that dream. I had that same dream, and so a lot of my time and effort was focusing on fundraising, and as a result of that, the product didn't get as far as it could have. So my advice is, if you can, right? I mean, it's all if you can, but forget about the fundraising piece. Build a product that customers want. Focus on getting customer traction. That will not only validate, yes, the market wants it and you're doing the right thing, but once you do that, the funding will come into place. It's so what's the word I'm looking for? It's so easy to fall into this trap with, I'm just going to I have the greatest idea in the world. I'm just going to raise a bunch of money and hire like 10 people and we're going to be off, right? The reality of it is, especially in the Midwest, it's as Eric Weissman put it, it's harder than if you're on the coast. The reality is it just takes a lot longer. So focus on building a product or service that people want, building up your customer base, all the other stuff will fall into place.
I love that. And you mentioned earlier that you started as a solopreneur but had to go out and find a co-founder, a technical co-founder who could help you actually build this thing. And I know that you have recently brought on a new technical co-founder. Can you walk us through a little bit what that process is like when you have this baby in your mind, this idea that you think can really go the distance, and you're bringing somebody else on, what people should be looking for in a co-founder, and also what some of the pitfalls might be?
Yeah, great question. So, I had been looking for a tech co-founder ever since I had come up with the idea. It was part of the origin story. It was like, okay, well, I can't do this on my own. I have to have somebody. And I had tried some outs, but it was a very long process to really find that right fit because, number one, the person that you end up bringing up on your team not only, I mean, this is a given, not only do they have to have the right skill set from a tech standpoint, right? But you have to be able to get along. This is a marriage, right? When you're partners, it's a marriage. And so finding that right person is difficult. I ended up finding the right person through my network. Actually, I found the right person twice. Maybe I found the wrong person. But so the story is I did have a tech co-founder, and we had to, we basically parted ways probably just actually a couple months ago. And one of the things I would give advice to is not only do they have to have the skill set, not only do they have to have the personality for you to be business partners, right? But the third piece, which I actually didn't really, it wasn't one of the boxes that I was checking, was, I assumed it, is you have to be willing to live the entrepreneurial lifestyle. You have to be willing to make sacrifices, right? To take your standard of living and bring it down to ramen noodle type living, you know what I mean? And be able to bootstrap it. And I think that's one of the biggest things, is that your co-founders kind of got to be with you from that perspective, not just yes, wanting to do it, but actually willing to do it, because this is a grind. Entrepreneurship is a grind. You see all the fabulous stories and it looks like, oh, this is great, this is awesome. But it's a grind. And the best entrepreneurs are delusional with thinking that they're going to succeed. And you have to be. You absolutely have to be. So no matter who you eat with, investors, friends, peers, other companies, they're going to give you all sorts of different advice and opinions. But, you've got to be able to weather the storm to succeed.
So we are in a room full of podcasters, and it's a little bit different than your journey, but you have the opportunity to work with people every day who are creators and who are putting their content out there. Is there anything that you've seen, the ones who are really successful at getting their audiences to monetarily contribute to them? Is there any advice you would give to, we'll talk to the podcasters in the room specifically, but content creators, that helps them in being able to do that successfully?
So, in what we've seen from our customers, and then also from our research is, the biggest thing for creators, the biggest hurdle that creators have is the fear for asking for support, monetary support. That is the biggest fear. And what I would say to creators is your fans want to support you. They get value out of the content that you produce. Let them support you. They want to support you. Yes, it's always scary, right? You've got a big following or even got a small following, and trying to ask for monetary support is definitely scary, but they do want to support you. We live in an age where no longer is the famous people on TV. They're on Twitch or on YouTube or a podcaster, right? So given the opportunity to have a closer relationship with the creator through this platform, because you can provide exclusive content, that is something that is very appealing to your fans. And again, they want to support you. Don't be afraid to do that. It's a big step, but I think it's a really necessary one.
That's reassuring and inspirational. Is there any final piece of advice that you would like to leave for any of the entrepreneurs who are listening to this remotely, or any of the podpreneurs who are here in the room?
Yeah, don't be afraid to pursue your dreams. Now, don't go in it and just completely be emotional about it. Think about, worst case scenarios. What if I don't have it? And plan for it, right? I know, like, a lot of us just like, I just want to go do this. But be, precise and pragmatic about when you do it and why. Understand what your why is, understanding how you're going to change the game, understand how you're going to change the world, and let that passion drive and fuel that inspiration to go do it. Get people to help you, to support you, get your fans to support you. And if you do all those things and you're super passionate about it and don't give up, you've got a good chance.
So where can people learn more about you? Where can they go to find out any information on Jubal? Where can people in the room and the other podcasters and creators listening get set up with their own Jubal account? Absolutely.
So Jubal is free to use. So all of you that are listening can go and create your own Jubal account. Our product is a short URL, so kind of like Bitly. And if you place that short URL in your podcast, on YouTube, on Instagram, wherever it is, and tell your fans about it, in as little as 3 seconds, they give as little as $1. So we've made it really fast and easy. So the website where you can go sign up is jubleit.com. Sign up for free, and you can start getting support from your fans as soon as today.
Everybody, give it up for Paolo Dominguez. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is awesome. Thank you. Hey guys, thank you again for stopping by today to spend a little bit of time with me and the rest of the Millennial Mafia. Just a reminder, you can find all of today's show notes at millennialmm.com/podcast. And if you haven't heard yet, I'm opening up my calendar to you, the listeners, to hop on a 15-minute call with me. The sole purpose of this call is to connect and get to know each other. I want to forge true relationships with you so that we can build up an amazing network and community of ambitious millennials who are going to be the leaders and influencers of tomorrow. If you're interested, please just go to millennialmm.com/call and snag a 15-minute time slot. I look forward to connecting with you. Peace out.